American girls and American guys, we'll always stand up and salute. We'll always recognize when we see old glory fly. There's a lot of men dead, so we can sleep in peace at night when we lay down.
The head of the Transportation Security Administration says the public should...
We are the guests of this beautiful city and the Raton Independent Riders of Raton. They have raised money to pay graciously for our gas stop today. Let's give them a big Before we kick off, I've been asked to read a short letter. This young lady, Kat Hansen. Kat Hansen lost her nephew in Afghanistan not long ago, and she's asked me to read this letter in remembrance of him, and then we're going to present a flag to an FNG to carry to the wall in his honor. Lance Corporal Matthias Newman Hansen, January 26, 1990 to February 21st, 2010. United States Marine, serving with Kilo Company, 2nd Battalion Infantry. On Matt's 26th day of his 20th year of his life, February 21st, 2010, Matt was killed while supporting combat operations in Helmand Province in southern Afghanistan, where a major offensive by U.S. and Afghan forces were being waged against the Taliban. When Matt joined the Marines in 2007 as a rifleman in the 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines, 2nd Marine Division of the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, he was following a long family history of military service. His father had served in the Gulf War, his stepfather in Vietnam. His brother is currently serving in the Army and has relatives who served in both World Wars. On Sunday, February 21st, Lance Corporal Hansen became the first member of his family to be killed in combat operations when he was shot in Afghanistan. On his 22nd birthday, Matt's father wrote him, "22 years ago, my life was blessed because God sent you to me. I bawled when I first saw you, and when you turned 18 2 years ago, you left such a strong, brave man with the heart of a true warrior. But most of all, no fear to show your love to all of those around you. And knowing that you had another home that you were going to. I will never forget the last words you spoke to me when you left our home as you hugged me goodbye. Dad, don't worry. Everybody dies, but not everybody has Jesus in his life, and not everybody got to be a Marine. I am grateful for my God, my country, but I miss the sound of your heavy young feet through the house, your humor, and your powerful hugs. I have learned so much from you. Love, Dad." Matt was a Christian that served a cause greater than himself. He loved all his brothers, family, cows, and his dog. Thank you, Kat. We're going to take this flag and place it at the wall next to our mission accomplished flag. Okay, at this time we'd like to recognize the Independent Riders of Raton, who, as I said before, have hosted us here year after year and have consistently shown their love and support for us by paying for our gasoline while we're here and making us feel so welcome. We have the President of the Independent Riders of Raton here, Tim Trujillo, and I ask you to accept this plaque on their behalf. Run for the Wall, presented to Tim Trujillo and the Independent Riders of Raton, New Mexico, In grateful appreciation for the support shown to Run for the Wall 28, 2016, Board of Directors and Riders of Run for the Wall. Tim?
Hey, Tim!
Do we have somebody here from the Colfax County Sheriff's Office to accept this plaque? Okay, Tim, will you take that and make sure it gets to them? Thank you. And we also have these fine young Marines out here who are here to honor you, and we have a recognition for them too. Run for the Wall, presented to young Marines of Colfax County, Raton, New Mexico, in grateful appreciation for the support shown to Run for the Wall 28 in 2016, on behalf of the Board of Directors and the Riders of Run for the Wall. They come out here every year to pay their respects to us, and we think they are some of the finest young Marines we've ever seen. Good job. At this point, I'd like to present Navy Captain Edna Candelario of the Nurse Corps, of the Navy's Nurse Corps. She has some information that she'd like to give out to us too. Captain Candelario.
Good morning, everybody. Like Billy D says, what a grand place we live here in Raton, New Mexico. What a beautiful day that we are able to be here with our families, friends, and our biker comrades. At this time, I would be remiss, being a retired military nurse and a woman in the United States Navy, not to briefly touch on some history regarding nurses and women in the military. On October 18, 2015, marked the 18th year since the dedication of the women in the military service for the American Memorial in Washington, D.C. These 18 years have brought tremendous changes for women in the uniform. Women now wear 4 stars, women are serving abroad submarines, the combat exclusion policy has been repealed, and women have earned the coveted Ranger tab, and the list goes on. The advancement of women have been picking up speed with old barriers broken and new paths are opening. In January of this year, all combat positions were open to women. February began accepting the submission packages for SEALs. In July, the United States Navy Academy will celebrate the 40th anniversary of the induction of its first female plebes. The incoming class of 2020 has the highest number of women, 324 in the United States Naval Academy history. In the Navy as a whole, 67,687 women made 20% of all active duty and reserve sailors. 98% of all billets were open to women. Female officers may be assigned to any ship or submarine, face no restrictions in aviation. Women now combat ships, aviation squadrons, special operation units, and ashore of commands. The first female enlisted officers count 1 Fleet Master Chief, a Force Master Chief, 4 Command Senior Chiefs, and 48 Master Chiefs in their proper ranks. All new ships are making accommodations for women, and older ships have been retrofitted to make sure that living quarters requirements are met. Other than meeting Navy privacy requirements for berthing, no other modifications are necessary. Although women currently made up less than 25% of the Navy, their presence and their influence are increasing throughout the service. The following firsts but are being followed by thousands of other women who are rising in the Navy in all their branches of the service. In the decades to come, more and more women will be promoted into positions that allow them to demonstrate their skills and talents along the military best and most dedicated sailors. One most visible woman in the upper ranks undoubtedly is Vice Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Michelle Howard. The second highest ranking position in the Navy, and the first woman in the Navy to support 4 stars, and the first African American to command a ship and reach flag rank. Women are underrepresented among senior non-commissioned officers. 51% of Americans are women, but account for 16% of uniformed officers. At the general rank, only 4% of the Army generals, 3% of the Marine Corps generals, 7% of the Navy admirals, and 9% of the Air Force generals. But how did we get here? If it wasn't for those women, civilian and military, paving the way, and the women that gave their lives. During the Civil War, over 60 women were either wounded or killed during various battles. July 1863, after the Battle of Gettysburg, the bodies of 2 Confederate women in uniform were found. Union flag bearer, also women in uniform, were killed on the hill near Pickett's Charge. A young Marine named Francis Day was mortally wounded while serving as Sergeant Frank Maine in the Western Theater. In 1898, Spanish-American War began. The Daughters of American Revolution recruited female physicians and nurses. More than 1,500 nurses served, including 250 nuns, 80 African-American nurses, and at least 4 Native Americans. 20 of these women died after contracting illness from those in their care. 1901, Congress established an Army Nurse Corps. 7 years later, it created the Navy Nurse Corps. 1917, during World War I, the U.S. declared a war on Germany. 403 Army nurses and 16 Navy nurses on active duty. Nurses were the first female military personnel to die in the line of duty. In 1918, 111 Army nurses died overseas and 186 died stateside. World War II. During the Battle of Anzio, 6 Army nurses were killed by the German bombing, destroying the tented hospital. 4 Army nurses were awarded Silver Stars for extraordinary courage under fire. In the Pacific, more than 400 military women lost their lives during World War II. 1939, 74,000 nurses joined the Army and Navy Nurse Corps. Despite the risks these women endured, it wasn't until 1947 that nurses were finally granted permanent commissioned officer status. 1939, after the Bataan Peninsula in the Philippines fell to the Vietnamese, 77 Army and Navy nurses became the largest group of American women ever captured and imprisoned by an army. All of them survived as known as today, Angels of Bataan and the Corregidor. Approximately 200 nurses took place in Anzio campaign. 2 of them were the first women to receive Silver Star for the meritorious duty. During the campaign, they cared for 33,128 patients. The Korean conflict, nurses died. 15 nurses died. Sadly, we have lost more women to the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq more than any other conflict in our history, and more than 1,000 nurses came home as Purple Heart recipients. In the Spanish-American War, there were 21 nurses that died from diseases such as typhoid and malaria. World War I, there were 430 casualties. Many were Army and Navy nurses who died from influenza. World War II, there were 660 casualties. 6 Army nurses died from hostile fire. 6 Army nurses died when a Japanese suicide plane crashed into Hospital USS Comfort near the Philippines. Korea War, 16 Army, Navy, and Air Force nurses died in theater or en route to the battle theater. In Vietnam, 265,000 women served in the armed forces of the United States. Nearly 10,000 women in uniform actually served in country during the conflict. They completed their tours and made a difference and gave their lives. The Vietnam Women's Memorial was established not only to honor those women who served, but also for the females who lost loved ones in the war. So they know about the women who provided comfort, care, and human touch for those who were suffering and dying. The Vietnam Women's Memorial was dedicated in 1993 as part of the Vietnam Memorial. Approximately 11,000 American military women were stationed in Vietnam during the war. Close to 99% were nurses in the Army, Navy, and Air Force. By 1967, most military nurses who volunteered to go to Vietnam did so after graduation. These women were the youngest group of medical personnel ever to serve in wartime. Because of the guerrilla tactics of Vietnam, many women were in the midst of conflict. There was no front on such a thing as safe behind lines. Many were wounded. The names of 8 military nurses who died in the Vietnam are listed on the wall. Many weapons specified designed to mutilate, maim during massive casualty situations. Nurses often worked around the clock, conducted triage, assisted with emergency tracheotomies and amputations, debrided wounds, and inserted chest wounds so surgeons could get to the next critical patient. Over 58,000 soldiers died in Vietnam and 350,000 were wounded. Thousands of women served in Japan, Guam, the Philippines, Hawaii, and other stateside hospitals caring for the wounded and dying who have been stabilized and flown out of the war zone. Although all were there to save lives, they received the same hostile treatment as the returning soldiers. In the Persian Gulf, 33,000 women were deployed. 6 perished due to Scud missile explosions or accidents. In the Afghanistan and Iraq, since the war on America on the September 11, 2000 war, the decades worth of conflict, more than 238,000 were deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan. More than 800 female service members have been wounded, and 139 died from combat-related incidences. Many are not aware that 136 brave servicewomen died in the war of terrorism. Most of the servicewomen were killed by improvised explosive devices, and others died in military plane crashes. 21 were mothers more than children aged 18 and younger. One female officer whose body was shattered by the explosive device she was attempting to disarm died in the arms of her soldier husband who was stationed nearby. Although the prohibition against women serving in combat units was lifted in 1994, it has been the United States policy to exclude women from combat units. However, in Afghanistan and Iraq, women have served as foot soldiers during the door-to-door operations and involved in convoy escort missions. Most female soldiers who have lost lives during the last 10 years have been the victim of hostile action. Female Purple Heart awarded to women given per-year work, 3 in Korea, 10 in Vietnam, 6 in the Persian Gulf, and 741 in Afghanistan and Iraq. Presently, the United States and the 22 women are near completion and will be commissioned. Second lieutenants, infantry, and army and armor officers in its first steps under historic rules that let women serve in combat. Congress is on the verge of ordering young women to register for military draft for the first time in history and is highly controversial. Veterans continue to battle homelessness, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, physical and mental health illnesses requiring long-term rehabilitation, diabetes, gastrointestinal disorders, vision, dental, drug addictions, Agent Orange, skin diseases, high suicide rates, and sexual assaults, not to include the inequality of care for male and female soldiers. We as veterans need to stick together, male and female, to urge Congress and the President for better, faster, and safer health care. Every May for more than a decade, there has been a cross-country journey from the southern wall to the Southern California to the wall. The independent riders have done numerous events so they can provide gas for veteran motorcyclists, giving them a grant and send off to the Washington, D.C. Taking a cue from the Native American culture, there's a large population of Vietnam veterans, our old warriors, that participate continually every year to welcome home, respect, and healing that his annual journey provides. The Run for the Wall understands these warriors will still save the inevitable side effects both physical and mentally. They seek all veterans of our past and present, including those currently serving, by providing them funding so they may unite and begin a healing journey with fellow brothers and sisters. Thank you for the distinct honor in addressing the Run for the Wall. God bless you all, and as the United States says, farewells and following seas. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Captain. Okay, we are running a little bit behind schedule, so once again, please, big round of applause for our hosts here in Raton, especially all the folks who have served us their coffee and refreshments here, and again, the independent riders.
Respectfully request to post the colors, sir.
Permission granted, sir.
Young Marine, Mountain, hut! Present, home!
Detail. Forward, march. Detail, halt. Left face. Post. Post. Present arms.
Pledge! I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.